was extremely motivating and comforting and disarming to know that there were people like me who had made it out and who were completely willing to help me get there as well.
We should meet people where they're at, but let's not leave them there, right?
These are policies that have been failed policies, and that's what the NDP is trying to bring here to Alberta, and that's what we're trying to stop. These drugs are being diverted. We never talked about that. They're being diverted. And guess where they're being diverted to? The junior highs, the high schools, the post-secondaries. The only people benefiting from this are the drug dealers. The only people being disadvantaged by this is the rest of society, and quite frankly, the law enforcement community.
I lost my son to suicide in 1999, so I know the effects of, what has occurred, what was spoken about here today. So had I had this opportunity as a parent back then, I would have taken whatever steps necessary to make sure that he was with us today.
This is actual compassion. It's not looking the other way and hoping for the best. Rather, it is, and it's not about hiding the issue. Rather, it's addressing the challenges and confronting the problem head on.
Adam Sos here for Rebel News on location at the Carriage House Inn here in South Calgary with another AlbertaDecides.com update. We're about 2 weeks away from the election now, and the polls seem to be wavering week to week as to who has the lead, whether it's the UCP or the NDP. So every one of these announcements is absolutely critical. Some of them have been pretty substantial, others relatively minor, talks about minor cost savings or seniors discounts. There are a number of significant delegates I've already seen walking in today, so it seems like this will be a bigger one, but without further ado and without any more speculation, we'll head in to hear the announcement.
Albertans have been blessed that this province has been able to emerge out of the pandemic with the strongest job growth in the country. But the sad reality is that despite the opportunity created by a booming economy, Alberta is also grappling with the effects of untreated mental health issues and the ongoing addiction crisis that jurisdictions are experiencing all over North America. Addiction touches almost everyone. People struggling with addiction are on our streets, and no family is being spared. Each and every one is someone's son, daughter, husband, wife, mother, or father. They are our fellow Albertans who are caught in the grips of a deadly and destructive illness that is destroying their potential and endangering their lives. They all deserve the chance to change their lives for the better.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amelie, and I have the disease of addiction. I'm here today to be an example of the impact that court-ordered intervention can have on a life. Growing up, my home life was incredibly chaotic. To escape it, at the age of 12, I started using drugs. I quickly became addicted. My grades began slipping, and I found myself in legal trouble. The addiction had taken over my life to the point where I was on the brink of death. By the time I was 15, I was overdosing every other week and had no regard for my own life. Thankfully, my mother intervened and got a court order for me to be sent to detox. I then went into a treatment program focused on abstinence, which ultimately saved my life. Without this intervention, I'm certain that I would be dead. Today, I am full of gratitude that my family was able to step in the way of my disease. I live an incredibly rewarding life that would not be possible without this court-ordered intervention. Yeah, I mean, coming into treatment, I was definitely angry, and I didn't want anyone to help me. I just wanted to be left alone to, die an alcoholic death. But it was extremely motivating and comforting and disarming to know that there were people like me who had made it out and who were completely willing to help me get there as well.
And now that you've come through that, you're actually helping people as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, it's extremely rewarding. It's definitely not an easy job seeing young people come in who have just no regard for their life or their well-being. But I'm incredibly grateful that I've gotten to this point where I'm able to give back the gift that I've been given.
And do you think the fact that you've been through it, you can empathize with them, you can relate to them, you've lived through a great deal of what they're going through, do you think that helps?
Oh, definitely. I went through lots of other programs that weren't run by people who struggle with addiction, and I was never able to really want to participate, right? Because these people didn't understand what I was going through. Like, they definitely had compassion for me, but it wasn't the same level of understanding as it is when you're working with other alcoholics and addicts. Yeah.
I've been in long-term recovery for 15 years after I spent 7 years homeless on the streets of Calgary and 20 in addiction. I would not be here today if it were not for the intervention and support of a provincial court judge. For me, this Compassionate Intervention Act means hope. Hope for families and communities bearing the impact of addiction. My wife and I are now raising my sister-in-law's baby after she lost her life to a fatal overdose. I'm a dad again, in a way nobody should expect to be. She left behind a 1-year-old baby and a teenage son. We knew she was in trouble with addiction, and we had no way to intervene. If this act had been in place then, she may still be alive today. I spoke with my mother-in-law and I asked her if I could speak about her daughter just a few days ago. She said, please do. We agreed that if sharing our family story helps one person choose to get their loved one help and save a life, then it is worth the pain our family has suffered. I'm actually working with the mother for the past year, and one of her questions to me about 6 months ago was, when am I going to be able to get my son the help he needs? Right? He may not want it, but he needs it. And I'm a firm believer, if you're not consciously able to make that decision on your own, somebody who cares about you and loves you should have the power. They already have PCHAT orders. They already have Form 10s for mental health. This is just adding another layer to get people the help that they need.
So do you think that this is the truly compassionate response?
100%. It just to leave them out there isn't. I have a saying. It's. I believe we should meet people where they're at, but let's not leave them there. Right.
So I'm Mike Ellis. I worked the streets for over a decade. I look at the faces of some of these parents. I was that police officer that attended their homes where they were crying, saying they didn't know what to do. I've had mothers cry in my arms because they didn't know what to do with their children. Are we going to condemn a 12-year-old to a life of palliative care, and by giving them drugs, giving them a safe place to use these drugs? We have hope. This is what this offers, hope. Hope to these young kids, the kids that were back here, hope to these parents, so that those children will have something more than the continual and perpetual state of abuse. That's not a life to be given drugs and then given a safe place to use them and then given an naloxone kit and then sent on their way and then use the drugs again. That's what they're doing in Eastside Vancouver. I know that. I've been out there. And let's talk about this. These drugs are being diverted. We never talked about that. They're being diverted. And guess where they're being diverted to? The junior highs, the high schools, the post-secondaries. The only people benefiting from this are the drug dealers. The only people being disadvantaged by this is the rest of society and, quite frankly, the law enforcement community. Well, I've seen it firsthand from the parents, quite frankly, right? As I indicated in my remarks, many of these parents, they don't know what to do. And these kids are in the throes of their addiction. People need to understand it's a neurobiological illness. And as one of our young girls mentioned on the stage, I mean, she said, she goes, yeah, at the time, I didn't want the help. And that's the problem, right? Because when you're in the throes of your addiction, no, you don't want the help because you're focused on the drug. You want the drug. But the argument is this. If you're overdosing 5 times a day, if you are doing unspeakable things in order to achieve the money to get these drugs, then you are posing a danger to yourself or others. Hence why these sort of people need the help that they need. They need the intervention. I'm not going to allow somebody, as I indicated before, allow a young person to spend a life of palliative care. I mean, that's dangerous. It's outrageous, right? And that's the opposing view of the NDP and, quite frankly, the policies that not only destroyed areas along the west coast from Vancouver, but all the way down, all the way to Los Angeles. You see these same sort of policies in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, in Seattle, in Portland. It's the same policies. These are not theoretical. This is not Mike Ellis or Daniel Smith or the UCP party. These are policies that have been failed policies. And that's what the NDP is trying to bring here to Alberta. And that's what we're trying to stop.
This is actual compassion. It's not looking the other way and hoping for the best. Rather, it is, and it's not about hiding the issue. Rather, it's addressing the challenges and confronting the problem head on. Our United Conservative Party has a bold vision and plan to address the mental health and addiction challenges that we face. We stand for safe, effective, and accessible treatment for all. We stand for helping those who are struggling to achieve recovery. We stand for achieving life-saving services on demand when they are needed. We stand for partnerships with First Nations and walking this journey together. We stand for a parent's right to save the life of their child. We stand for safe streets and accountability. We stand for safe and drug-free transit, and we stand for a functioning justice system.
Our United Conservative Party has a strong vision for the future. A re-elected United Conservative government will take a fair, firm, and compassionate approach to these issues. Fair to the communities, families, and businesses suffering the consequences of addiction, drug use, and untreated mental illness. Firm with the need to focus on public safety, and compassionate to those struggling with the challenges who need treatment and support to save their lives and recover. The toughest part about it that I've seen is the fact that treatment was essentially not even spoken about under the NDP government. We have spent the last 4 years building out as much recovery opportunities and treatment as we possibly can. We said we were going to do 4,000 publicly funded spaces. We've done over 10,000. Under the NDP, they actually, if you were an addict who was moving into treatment, often you would end up having to spend $40 a day in order to access publicly funded AHS-provided treatment, which we found to be completely untenable. So we got rid of that right away. And then we're the first jurisdiction in Canada to have the virtual opioid dependency program, VODP. It's literally you make a phone call, you can be assessed by an addiction specialist, a doctor, and immediately you can walk to the closest pharmacy and for free get on opioid agonist therapy like Suboxone. And so that's literally treatment on demand. So we are doing everything we can to continue, and we will continue.
So we cannot idly sit by, as the Premier mentioned, and just hope this goes away. We have to meet this head on. And we know we're in collaboration as we speak now of trying to develop partnerships where we can work together, not just for the benefit of 60 Guy, but the benefit of all Alberta. So I just wanted to say thank you, Premier, for you and your team and the work you've done to help make Alberta a safer place. So thank you.
We have a detox center that's doing well. Some numbers are, in the last 6 months, I think we had 186 people come in. And about 100 of those people have gone out and they've passed the detox requirements. Some of them are onto other drugs like Suboxone, and something is being done. You know, there's always hope, and I think we're fully behind the recovery method rather than the harm reduction.
I want to acknowledge our Premier. We appreciate the support that she has given to our community, the Kainai community, in invest in a recovery community for us. You know, I think what the chiefs have said earlier, we cannot wait any further.
We all struggle in our own communities, no matter where we're from, in Alberta, with mental health and with addictions. And now's the time that this government has the foresight in leading other provinces in Canada, other governments in North America, and demonstrating that they really truly want to be engaged in supporting and helping the parents, the siblings of people who have addictions, as well as ensuring that it's a safe place for us all to live. I believe strongly that it should be treatment, aftercare, working with the client or the individuals to support them and help them to get back on a healthy path. That's the most effective way that seems to be working within our communities. But those who are not able to, determine for themselves that they should seek a better way of treatment or other means. I agree that, I see parents who come into my office crying because their children are not, they can't get them help. So this is a path forward in ensuring that our people have good care.
Now, you deal with this firsthand. You talk to people. You often probably see parents who've lost children, these heartbreaking stories. Do you think that personalizing it, humanizing it, realizing that there's real people involved and that those people need help is essential to moving forward?
Yes, it is. I lost my son to suicide in 1999. So I know the effects of, what has occurred, what was spoken about here today. So had I had this opportunity as a parent back then, I would have taken whatever steps necessary to make sure that he was with us today.
Adam Sos for Rebel News. First of all, thanks all of you for your testimonies. Very powerful stuff. There are people, whether in federal or provincial politics, who are happy to leave these people within the throes of addiction, and they're no doubt going to categorize what you're doing as sort of an attack on personal freedoms or as not compassionate. How do you respond to those allegations?
I just hearing the young girls here and their parents talking about in our First Nations leadership, when people lose individual agency and they're not able to make decisions in their own interests and they're only looking at the next fix and they don't care whether they live or die, we've got to restore individual agency. We've got to restore the ability for them to be able to make decisions in their own interests to preserve their life. That's what this is about. And so I feel very confident that what we would be doing would be fully compliant with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for life, liberty, and security of the person.
Well, a powerful and emotional UCP announcement. Very often these things are pretty mundane tax announcements, some minor savings here and there. But here there's real emotions. People were crying, sharing their personal testimonies. An interesting juxtaposition between the NDP, their willingness to sort of provide drugs and not help people out of these difficult circumstances, and the UCP's challenging and admittedly difficult willingness to tackle these issues head on. We're certainly going to be continuing to follow this story throughout the election and after the election as it unfolds. I had the opportunity to speak to a number of ministers as well as to some of the people who shared their testimony, in addition to Chief Roy Whitney. So great to be here covering this event. Certainly one of the more powerful events we've seen yet on the campaign trail. As always, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Sos. Everyone, just encouraging you to check in frequently at albertadecides.com. That's the spot to catch all of our coverage of this critical election for Alberta here in 2023. If you want to chip in as well and support our truly independent journalism, that's the spot to do it. Again, albertadecides.com.